to be in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas a little cool today than it was yesterday. Everybody wants to come to the Bahamas. We have a large number of tourists visiting us, which is very good. It's good for the economy. And we have to make sure be on our best behavior. Genuine Bahamians always do what they can to make sure that our country is safe for the tourists, safe for ourselves, and safe for our family members. This is a great day to be in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas because Bahamians, so many people around the world, are striving to fight for the very things that we fought for through our mothers and fathers. I was listening to a show that I heard just prior to coming here, and the host was questioning the guests, a former parliamentarian and a former minister in a previous administration, and they were talking about conditions in the Bahamas and about leadership. Leadership has vision, and the thing is that when you look at our country today, you're going to see that many things are affecting the Bahamian people, and people are concerned about which direction we are going as a nation. What is it that you can contribute to building the Commonwealth of the Bahamas? What are those positive qualities that we have as a nation, as a people, to be able to take the country to a much higher level than what it is now? There are some things, of course, I heard the former minister say about certain personalities that were growing up in his time. They got hooked on to something else, and instead of them living, they're all dead. They're not around in 2024. Obviously, there are some things that some of our young people are doing, and it is cause for concern. You heard what National Insurance said, that we're not having enough children, that the families are having fewer children than it was in the past. That may be a factor. But also what is a factor is that we're losing too many of our young people, particularly our young men and women. We also have seen a number of tourists just disappearing. They go out swimming or snorkeling, as the case may be, and somehow something tragic happens. There was a boating accident where a woman was injured and then she died. And we've seen on a cruise ship where two members of that ship died as a result of something that occurred in the engine room of that particular ship. We're seeing people mysteriously disappear. I understand some people disappeared even in Grand Bahama. They just cannot be found anymore. Families are trying to find their loved ones, and their loved ones could not be found. So some strange things are happening in our country. And we also heard about suicides being committed. Now, Bahamians who go to church on Saturday and Sunday, they don't want to commit no suicide. I don't care how bad things may appear in their lives. I've done a thorough checking of my own family on both sides, 70 years deep. And I haven't found a single trace of anyone being suicidal, even in our ancestry. The thing is that there are certain things that we have to do. If there is a problem, we look for a solution. We look for an opportunity to solve that particular problem. And it is incumbent upon us to do something, to learn from what our fathers and mothers did. They worked very hard to give us the kind of country we have today. Now, you have some others who are trying to take it away from us. I heard the former minister and parliamentarian say that we have a beautiful country, a beautiful nation. Yes, we do. Beautiful waters, beautiful beaches, beautiful skies, and we have the land, many islands, many rocks, many keys. The point is, are we benefiting as Bahamians from the rich bounty in our land? Or are we just workers? Do we have others calling the shots for us? Strangers, foreigners, aliens, outsiders? When are we going to become owners in our own country? When are we going to come the ones to call the shots? Are we calling the shots today? Maybe some people think that we are. I understand the IAAF games are coming back to the Bahamas. Track and field games in preparation for the Paris Olympics this year. And we have seen how Bahamians have excelled at home and abroad and regionally in sports. Could we do even better in sports? Yes, we can. Are we prepared to take that raw talent, train it, mold it, shape it, refine it, take out all of the impurities, and our people can stand toe-to-toe with those on the world stage? It's a positive for the Bahamian people, our sporting power that God has put in our athletes. We need to learn to appreciate the young child who wants to do something and say, Mommy, I'd like to learn this. Daddy, I'd like to learn that. Children are interested in certain things. Now, of course, we have to guide them and lead them to make sure they don't put themselves in any trouble. Today, we have so many distractions by our young people because of other personalities who are involved or trying to become involved in their private lives. Parents, you have a responsibility to make sure that your children are protected. I know my mother and father were very, very protective. They had 12 pigeons to look after. And even when we became adults, they were still very protective of their children. And I think today, more now than ever before, the kind of problems and issues that affect parents today, my mother and father did not have to go through that. But they managed the situations that confronted them in their lifetime. We as parents today have to do the same thing. Grandmothers, grandfathers. When you see grandfathers having to bury their grandsons, something is seriously wrong with that. When grandmothers have to bury their granddaughters, something is seriously wrong with that. Now, when you look at the United States of America in this presidential race, we have two senior men. And maybe you can comment on this as to why the Americans, with over 350 million people in that country, have settled on not no young spring chicken, as you may call it, in their 30s, in their 40s, to lead their country. How is it then, which is supposed to be the greatest nation on earth, the most powerful nation on earth, the biggest debtor nation on earth, I know that, $45 trillion. I don't know if we could even count that in debt. The point is, they're supposed to be the bastion of democracy, and yet still they have an influx of strangers, foreigners, aliens, outsiders crossing their southern border, and even some from the northern border. They just walk straight across the land, just like the Russians went into Ukraine. And they are coming by in very large numbers. I understand now it's in the millions that have entered the United States illegally. We have a problem here too with persons who come and they enter the country illegally. We have different areas where people can enter the country. Maybe we need to tighten up on our borders. I understand the Defense Force and the police are working on that, the southern border, as it were. And they repatriated some 261, if I'm not mistaken. I hope that figure is correct, 261 Haitian nationals back to their country. And they are getting ready now to send another influx of 160 something Haitians who were caught on the open seas. We try to be reasonable with these people, but there seemed to be a constant flow of illegal aliens entering the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And the Prime Minister said, to his credit, he told those persons in the international community, we cannot take any more. And of course, you have an international organization doesn't want us to repatriate these people back to their country. They came from there. Why should they not be sent back? They ought to stay where they are. God gave Haiti for Haitians. God gave Jamaica for Jamaicans. God gave Cuba for Cubans. He set the boundaries of nations all around the world. Now, you might have your own eyes about that, but the book tells us he sets the boundaries. He set the boundaries for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And the Commonwealth of the Bahamas belongs to the Bahamian people. And we ought to be not afraid to be in our own country. Some people are still afraid. I heard one lady call into the show. If not yesterday, it might have been the day before. The point is that people are afraid of what they see. Some people have fear. Now, fear is a serious thing. God says, fear not. I am with you. Do we believe that? God has always been with the Bahamas from day one. But do we believe what God says in his word? Do we believe what's in the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas? Because the two of them go together, the Constitution and the Holy Bible. In fact, it was the late Dr. Miles Monroe who told the parliamentarians, do not make any law that is contrary to the written word of God. Always have your Holy Bible right there with you when you're discussing any kind of legislation, any kind of decision making that you're going to do in terms of being able to set laws in place. Of course, you know, the government of the Bahamas has signed any number of agreements. And of course, Botswana was the latest one. I think the Prime Minister have what they call a memorandum of understanding. Wouldn't it be better for the Bahamian people to participate in knowing beforehand what is proposed, and they can give their input to see whether it's fitting for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas? Because, you know, you may just have one or two eyes looking at this. These people who are in authority are making decisions to bind the country over for years to come. A new administration may have to change all of those things because they may not be constitutionally sound. I'm very much concerned when I see the government of the Bahamas signing all these different memorandum of understanding, treaties, whatever else they have to sign with foreign nations, with people around the world. And remember now, these people are looking out for their own interest. Don't mind them smiling in your face or telling the Prime Minister they love the Bahamian people. They are looking out for their own best interests. We've seen that over the last 50 years and 8 months, and also to the detriment of the Bahamian people. Now, do we have any input? We need to have input so that when the Prime Minister looks at it, he sees what the Bahamian people are saying about that particular issue. And of course, he said that certain benefits, I don't know what these benefits are. I know there was an expensive trip, went to Botswana. I know that. And also, they had their president here, and he had a large delegation here. Did they pay for their own way? No, perhaps not. That was supposed to be an official delegation, so taxpayers' dollars have to roll out. That's what happens, Bahamians. Now I understand that same particular personality, their president, has invited the Governor General on a state visit to Botswana. I don't know what's the purpose of that. She represents the monarchy, and the Prime Minister runs the country. And the Prime Minister advises the Governor General. I don't know the purpose of that visit. But these are things that happen. And sometimes those persons in authority make mistakes. They make errors. And the errors can be grievous if we don't have our input into what it is that they are looking at, what they propose to sign, and consult with the Bahamian people so we can get somewhere. You heard about the GIN project in Grand Bahama, which went belly up. You know, these heads of agreements. You know how many of them have failed miserably? Taxpayers' dollars went down the drain. Our land acquired by strangers, foreigners, aliens, outsiders. Bahamians, you know, our administrations have made some grievous errors over the years. But we didn't have any input into anything that was signed. I'm very much concerned about that. I hope you are. Because Bahamians, if we're going to build a country, then the Bahamian people must have an input, serious input, as to whether it's in our best interest or not. Caller, you live on air. Go ahead, please.
Number one.
Go ahead, caller.
Yeah. You know what you're saying in your opening?
Yes.
Some strange things are taking place in this country.
Yes, they are. That's correct.
When you look around these Satan Islands and stuff, there's strange things are happening.
Yes.
We have to be concerned about it. Our visitors that come into this country, we have to make sure they leave back safely, because we don't want these. I know things can happen. Don't care where you go.
But caller, let me just interject right there at this point, because it just came into my head. Do you know how many visitors have disappeared in this country?
Beg your pardon?
Do you know how many visitors have disappeared in this country? Some strange.
No, I really don't know.
No, I'm just simply saying from reports that have been made public. We see some things happening in Exuma.
Yeah.
And other family islands.
Even with the local, also.
Where people are dead, they go out on one boat, and somehow something happens, and they got to pull the body out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor comes across, and he pronounces him dead. You understand what I'm saying? We were not having these things in the past.
I got you.
But some strange things are happening, and I don't know whether we have sufficient officers to do some serious investigations, although they will tell you the police are investigating. They got so many things to investigate. Then you got the murder. Another fellow died again. Okay, you had two people who died in an accident in one of the family islands. They have to investigate that. So the police are inundated with investigations or issues that they ought to be investigating. We never seem to know the results of these investigations. We just had the announcement. What is the end result of these investigations?
Right.
It just passes off the page of the newspapers, passes off the airwaves, and that's the end of it. But some underlying factors are still there. They are recurring over and over and over and over again. It is cause for concern. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, and I would like to see this government, that they start, that the prime minister, who's supposed to be the head man, that he will call in his man that is under him and start letting them speak with one voice. You can't let the press secretary come. She's saying something. Then when you look at the next one, they come and saying something again. it make you look like a little small chicken shack, like nobody know what they saying. Then it
Yeah.
look bad on the government. They need to speak with one voice before they come out to the public. If they can say A, well, let everybody say A.
But
Not
my
this one saying A, then the next one come on, he's saying B. It make us out here confused.
yes, I agree with you. I agree with you
And
100%. But
with NIB,
here's the thing. Maybe they should have just one particular personality or entity to give out information to the public. But now a lot of things are questionable, and because you're getting mixed information, even from the persons who are in the cabinet, you have cabinet ministers contradicting themselves. That has been happening from day one with this current administration. One say this, one say that, the prime minister say something else different.
it don't
And
look good.
so it is cause for concern, and I can understand your concern in that regard. People don't know what to believe. And then you have tremendous speculation. And when there's speculation, there's gossip, there's rumor, there's hearsay, because a lot of things are never clarified. Never clarified. So that causes a problem. Go
And
ahead, caller.
what I want to ask Mr. Pentad, if you would have by any chance you to get in be prime minister, what does government do now with the 1% on NIB? Will you change that? Will you stop that? Will
Interesting question.
on BEC? You said they bringing in private contracts or whoever to BEC. If you were to get in, will you change that when you get in? See, we are tired of the talking. We are tired of the politics. You understand? You
Yeah.
still get people out here who's smart and who's thinking.
Are
We don't
we?
want them come and tell us, oh, this government doing this, and when they get in, they wouldn't change nothing. They've been with the same. It's like the former prime minister. He said when he get in, he can pop the neck. Nobody's neck being popped yet. You understand?
Yeah, I understand. But
They,
then
they, they they just play with people emotion and stuff like that and make people and sort of Mr. This Prime Minister, he said when he get in, every rock bottom, he don't care what it is. He where the chip fall, it gonna lay. We are still waiting to hear the situation that happened in Abaco with the big generator, what they said,
yes,
sold to another company in Freeport.
yes,
We are
yes.
still waiting to hear about the $1 million that they're looking for in Abaco. We are waiting to hear these things. We are tired. Mr. Thompson, I don't know about you, but I am tired.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The caller raised a lot of issues. BPL, Bahamas Power and Light. I understand they are going to bring in some people from the outside to deal with Bahamas Power and Light. The Prime Minister said so. Um, I don't know what has happened. What happened to all of those people who used to work at BEC? Um, why is it that we have to have a whole crew of people? Because these people who are at BEC were highly trained when they had general manager, AGMs, and senior managers, and a whole lot of technical people who went to school and got their learning, got the experience. I don't know what is it about BPL that is so different when it was BEC. I just don't understand that. We still have the same system in place. We're not getting the level of service that we ought to have because there's tremendous in situations where the lights go off repeatedly in certain areas, not in all areas. Some people have been blessed to have continuous flow of electricity, but in too many areas, people are complaining about the fact that the lights keep going off. And of course, with national insurance, they said we were kicking the can down the road for years, and there has to be an increase in national insurance. You heard the new commercial, they got a new commercial out now saying that Bahamian families are smaller. They're not having enough babies. I heard a particular personality mention that, and there's the reason why they have to bring in strangers, foreigners, aliens, and outsiders. The point is that we are losing many of our people who can make a contribution to building the nation. They're dying at an extremely young age. That's what's happening. Your working population is being chipped down. That's not good for the country. People are doing things that they ought not to be doing. They're involved in certain things that they ought not to be doing, and we're losing many lives. And producer gave you the thing to let me know. Thank you, Mr. Producer. I didn't even have my earphones on, and they had the music. We're going to go back. I have to flesh this out to you when I get back from the break. This is Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network 99.5 FM. We'll be back after the break.
Express Yourself Live will return right after this.
Great news. Ron's Electric Motors' new location on Cowpen Road, right next to Island Luck, is open Saturday.
This is a great day to be in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Listen, I am so happy that I'm a Bahamian citizen, and one who is very grateful that I was born here. Well, no, I wasn't born in the Bahamas. I became a citizen. I got to get this thing right. July the 10th, 1973. I was born in the British colony called the Bahama Islands. The lines are open, 801-0271, 326-0271, 326-0272. Cable Bahamas, you can listen to us on 974. And Bahamians, we need to be concerned about what's happening. That first caller who called in just before the break, he made some very good points. I want to flesh some of those things out for you, Bahamians, because what I'd like to do on these shows is to make it very simple, very basic, so that the average person can understand. They were talking about on this other show, on another radio station, about the average Bahamian. I think too many things are very complicated for the average Bahamian. People do not take the time to help the woman in Baintown with those 5 boys, the man in Fox Hill with 6 daughters, and he's still looking for husbands for those girls. So I hope we have some young men out there who can fit the bill. And also the woman in Engliston who has 3 disabled children. They want a future too. Unfortunately, it would seem as if most of those persons in those kinds of categories are left out for some reason or another. Why is that? We're not extremely large in population. We are relatively small. And I don't think we should flood the country with a whole lot of other people by just making them, quote unquote, citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I don't think that's the right move. You should go. But nevertheless, that has been happening for 50 years and 8 months. So we have to do something about that. Now, getting back to some of those areas, the first caller called in about BPL, which was BEC. And I believe they're supposed to have 2 companies, BEC and BPL. And also, I believe we have a caller. My producers tell me you have a caller. Call you live on air. Go ahead, please.
Hello, yes, Professor.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
I have a question.
Yes.
The court, did the court give you all a date on when they're gonna hear the petition that is in as relate to the Nationality Act? Has you gotten a date from the court as yet?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to be seeing the relevant attorney in this particular issue. Of course, you know who that attorney is. And it's a good question that you ask. And I think others out there want to know what's happening there. But I don't have an answer for you. But hopefully very soon I'll have an answer for you. Did you hear me, caller?
Yes, I hear you.
Uh-huh.
So you're not sure if you're gonna be able to get a court date, soon then?
No. What I'm saying to you is, as it stands now, you asked me that particular question. I said it's a good question. I am not certain as to when it would be. As it stands now, I'll have to speak with the attorney, and he'll be able to enlighten me. In fact, he's going to be meeting with the whole team, by the way. He's working to meet with the entire team. And there are some things that we will be appraised of, and then an announcement will be made in that regard.
Okay, yes. Because the reason why I asked that question is because the court system in the Bahamas seem to drag cases on and on and on and on forever. And,
yes, that is a problem, and a lot of people have been complaining about that. But the court is there to grant justice. The court is there to adjudicate and be fair. The court is there to, make sure that whatever comes before it is constitutionally sound. And does not go by this opinion or that opinion, the next fellow's opinion. What does the law say? And from what I understand, what I know, they don't play around when it comes to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We just don't do that. And so the court has to make a determination, and we just will have to see how soon it will happen, how soon we will have the matter adjudicated before the Supreme Court. It's going to the Supreme Court.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. That was a good question. I'm sure perhaps a lot of you out there are wondering about the case with the Patriots. The Patriots did take out legal action in relation to some things that have been happening in this country for 50 years and 8 months. And they have a legal obligation to so do. If you feel aggrieved by the government of the Bahamas or anyone else or any other entity for that matter, you have a right to go to court. Now, that's just one option that you have. And I'm going to say this because of what the caller asked. It's a very good question that he asked. And maybe some of you are thinking about the same thing. But you should ask questions. That's the only way you're going to get an answer. Some things some people just don't say nothing about. So you got to ask them. Well, when we can get our cake? When we going to get our money? When we going to get this or that or the next thing? And sometimes you have to do that. But I think in a lot of cases, some of us just remain silent. We don't want to take appropriate action on issues that affect the Bahamian people. You have a right to disagree with a government. You have a right to disagree with the cabinet of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. They're not God. I heard the leader of the opposition say they don't commit crimes. I heard that remark he was saying in answering the crime issue. The government doesn't commit crimes. I'm going to ask you what you think about that. Okay? And I guess what is meant by a crime being committed. Okay? But we know for sure that the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Bahamas has been violated. Some things that are being done and have been done are not constitutionally sound. We know that for a fact, and we can prove it. Now it's up to the court to adjudicate the case. So we have to leave it right there. And as soon as we have the information that could be made public, then I'll be the first one to announce it on the airwaves, so you will know. And I'm delighted that he called in and asked that question. All I can say, Bahamians, keep watching, keep observing. And here's another thing I'm going to add while it's in my head. You need to be constitutionally organized on the ground where you are. You're not there yet, Bahamians. I know how this thing goes. I've been working with this for more than 50 years. But you need to be constitutionally sound. A lot of you complain about issues, and it's nothing wrong with about complaining about particular issues. But some of you like just talk it with your couple of friends under one tree drinking liquor, and you raise your voice, but nobody hears it. See, with Professor Thompson, he can bring it on the air. Nothing personal now. I ain't getting into people's personal affairs. I ain't gonna bother with that. But anything that affects the community, that affects the nation, since I have the use of these microphones, I'm bringing it right here. And we could discuss it openly on air. And we want to encourage you, be not afraid. I have to speak to that issue of fear, because a lot of you keep telling me you're fearful. Fearful of who? Fearful of what? This is the freest place on the planet. The man said, we are the most blessed nation on earth. We have the best spot on earth. They can only see the Bahamas from space. They can't see nobody else. That should tell you something. The Bahamas is like a light. A light is a city set on a hill that cannot be hidden. And the light has been shining, Ain't say nothing to nobody. But some people like to stay in the dark. Come to the light. Because if they come to the light, their deeds would be seen. Men love darkness rather than light because their deeds are evil. That's your answer for people who like stay in the dark. But those wicked, evil deeds will be exposed because the light is going to get brighter and brighter and brighter. Because Bahamians, we have a nation to build. We have to get serious about building a nation. So I was happy with the first call he called and he asked some questions, good questions. You have to be inquisitive, Bahamian. Now, there are times when those in authority may take a while to answer or to give you information, and this is another problem in our country. To get accurate and precise information is a major issue in our country. Why should that be? People are talking about Freedom of Information Act. Everything should be open. Every single national issue should be open. And that's what the Freedom of Information Act should just have one sentence. All national issues are to be made public, every detail of it to the public, and let the public see it and know it and understand it. What you hiding for? You know, some people were paid some big money, and we don't know how much money it is. But it's the public's money. If it was coming out of your personal pocket, then you could keep it quiet. But the taxpayers' money, Bahamians, what are we doing? Or what, I should say, what they're doing. Ain't no we in there, I ain't in that. I'm on the outside. But Bahamians, where did this attitude come from? Some people just got one check, walked away with some money, and they, when they squeak, you only hear a squeak out of them. But they want people to stand up and fight on their behalf. If you are not prepared to stand up and fight for your own good, that is unconstitutional. Yes, you should have help, but then you have to be involved yourself. And we have had senior person after senior person after senior person collect their nice fat check and just disappear into the darkness. That has happened in this country, and it is still happening today. Cause for concern. Where is the interest in the country of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas? Where's the interest? Just personal interest? Their personal interest supersedes the national interest of the Bahamian people. I don't want my personal interests to supersede the interests of this radio station. That would be unproductive. I want the radio station to succeed. Then I know I will succeed. But if my personal interest supersedes the interest of this radio station, you know what happens? Everybody fighting and knocking down one another. It's the same thing with the family. If my personal interest supersedes the members of my family, and I love members of my family, now some of them sometimes get in your hair, but you got to live with that. When the family succeeds, I personally succeed. The same thing with the nation. When the nation succeeds, Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson is in safe territory. I don't want to see this nation become like Sudan or Haiti or the Gaza Strip or like Russia. They had a fake election talking about democracy. You know nothing about no democracy. They don't know how to have, listen, they don't know how to have peaceful transition from one administration to the next. They believe in getting the guns and killing people in the street, shooting them down. That's how they run things. That's foreign to the Bahamian way of life. So when you see people coming up like that, you know that ain't no Bahamian. That's a stranger, that's a foreigner, that's an alien, that's an outsider. We do not behave like that. We may have some issues in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. But when you see people start behaving like that, putting necklaces around people and lighting them on fire, that's not Bahamian. And I don't think, based on what I have found, evidence in my own family, I cannot agree that Bahamians who go to church on Saturday, who go to church on Sunday, who believe in God, would want to commit suicide. I think something is wrong with that picture. But then the people say some Bahamians are suicidal. I always question that Bahamian because I haven't found one single thread of evidence. In my own family, on both sides, went very deep. Can't find a single thread of evidence of suicide, even with the little pigeons today. They want to live. They want to live in the Bahamas, and they want to be successful in the Bahamas because none of them plan to go anywhere. They want to stay here. They want to have their families here. So national insurance could get some benefits. Now, speaking about national insurance, I understand they put the reports out and this new commercial come out saying they have to increase it. I think July 1, I think it is. I think that's what it is. Yes, July 1, they're going to have an increase in the contributions. And some people are wondering, is a contribution a tax? Is that a tax? Is it voluntary? The answer is no. They say it's a contribution, but you're required by law to pay it. And I think for the most part, Bahamians have been paying, except there were some difficulties where certain employers did not pay the money into the fund. So when the employee goes to check with national insurance, they come to find out, well, all kind of missing contributions. The employee pays it to the employer who's supposed to pay it to national insurance. And some people have been dismissed from their jobs. And it's the duty of the inspectors. The inspectors have their work cut out for them. And I'm not going to denigrate any of them. But the thing is that you have the inspectors who are supposed to be checking on some things. The employee pays his contribution through his employer. Now, those who are self-employed now, they got to do that themselves. So there are problems with national insurance. Who owes the most money to national insurance? How have they been investing the money? Those who are managing the fund, do they have a responsibility? Yes, they do. How has the fund been managed? I believe from 1974 right up to now. See, you have to look at all the factors, how the fund has been managed. They said the fund would run out in 4 years. So you have to take the necessary action that is necessary, because a lot of people depend on that check, A lot of average Bahamians depend on that national insurance check. And one from Freeport called me, excuse me, I was telling me about his particular situation as it relates to the National Insurance Board. And I told him that matter could be resolved. It is very frustrating to people. Listen to this, Bahamians. It is very frustrating to the average Bahamian who has paid his money to his employer and it ain't reached national insurance. What do you expect him to do? Now, he can get vexed with that. And he comes to find out when he go to the people, they say, well, they ain't got no contribution for you. What do you expect him to do, Bahamians? He must just smile and be nice and say, okay, no problem. They'll just move on. Hard-working, average Bahamians being shortchanged by personalities who were the employers. Didn't pay the money in. And there have been companies who left this country, and a former prime minister said this, and they left. They didn't pay national insurance. They didn't pay BEC. They didn't pay some other bills. They left us high and dry. I don't know how we were operating like that. To allow people to come in without putting up a cash bond to cover these things in the event you have a problem. And we have had Bahamian companies, too, who have not paid national insurance. And the employees, or former employees, you got to call them former employees, because I know some of them. I've had conversations with them. They ain't get their money yet. Do you know that? That's what you expect people to do. So this national insurance thing is a serious thing. Now with BPL, the light. Some people say the light is like a mortgage. So they're paying two mortgages, mortgage for the house, mortgage for the light. Of course, I understand the light bill's supposed to be coming down. Now, how soon, I don't know. But we're supposed to be looking at other forms of energy because they tell me it's very expensive to operate because the electricity bills are so high. And the small businesses are going to get hit very hard. They need the electricity to keep them things cool, to be able to do things in their business. And so something has to be done about that. And of course, we have persons looking into other forms of energy to provide for the Bahamian people. I don't know how long these things are going to take. We're supposed to have qualified persons. Now, whether the government recognizes these particular personalities, I don't know. But obviously, there's a gap somewhere. We seem not to be moving. The country motto is forward, upward, onward, together. Forward, upward, onward, together. We got to fulfill the motto. Just like Article 24.1 talks about people working together to protect their interests. And I tell people this all the time. It requires cooperation with other people. I can't get my work done unless I have cooperation from some other people. I told my second oldest brother that, who lives in the United States. He's been gone 50 years. He wants to stay over there. That was his decision he made more than half a century ago. And he's quite comfortable over there. I don't think he has taken out citizenship in that country. But if he does, you cannot be a Bahamian citizen if you have dual citizenship. You take on the rights in them other people's place. Now, we have some Bahamians abroad. We got to check that out very carefully. Because the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas does not allow for duality of citizenship. Either you be a Bahamian and a Bahamian only. Now, if you want to be with them other fellows, you could do that. Because the Constitution allows you to go, if you want to go, and stay with them. We're not going to tie you down in the Bahamas. We don't do them kind of things. Now, in other places, they lock people up and put all kind of pressure on them. Those kind of things are unconstitutional in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. So we have problems, Bahamians, but let's look at the positives that we have. Can we accentuate the positives in the Bahamian people? One positive is, and this is because of God, not because of a political party, not because of those who have been abusing their power, appointed personalities and elected personalities. In this country, we have had, and there's no other country on the planet that has it. If you disagree with that, you call me and tell me which one does. From 1729, September, see, that's my birth month. The Lord caused me to be born in September. My father was born in September too. September 22nd is his birthday, and my own is September the 18th. From September of 1729, right on up to this very moment, this very day, we are living in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We have had peaceful transition from one administration to the next without firing one single shot, without shedding one drop of blood. No other country on the planet has that kind of record. That's a positive record. We need to accentuate that. I think I hear the music. I can explain on more of that when I come back. This is Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network, 99.5 FM. This is a great day to be in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. We'll be back after the break. This is a great day to be in the Commonwealth of Bahamas. It's nice and cool today. I hope it will continue and not get too hot like it was yesterday. Bahamians, we have a great country, and we're going to keep it that way. God's eyes are on the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Do you know that, Bahamians? The line's open, 3260271, 3260272, 8010271, and of course, Cable Bahamas 974. You can watch the program there. Famous before the break, I was telling you what was happening in this country from 1729 when we were a colony of the British. There were others in the Caribbean who were under different masters. Some were under the French, some were under the Dutch, and places like that. We in the Bahamas were under the British. In the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, that's what we are now, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Somebody told me somebody want to change the name now. I ain't going along with that foolishness. The Constitution says the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. How you go changing the name of the country to some other funny name? Huh? Is that the way we do things in the Bahamas? Without referring to the Constitution? That cannot be allowed, Bahamians. I so get used to saying Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Commonwealth. The wealth has to be made common. The wealth that exists in these islands, in the rocks and keys and on the land and in the sea and in the air, that wealth must be made common. I believe we have a call, call on the line. Call you live on here. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Professor. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well. How are you?
Great. You know what I wanted to see what's going to happen now? You remember the case? I think the commissioner said it is in hands of the investigators or something. You know, the woman who cried, the two women who cried rape?
Yes.
And said there was no evidence or nothing.
Yes.
Watch what's going to happen to that case. Just take my word for it. You remember the barefoot bandit?
The barefoot bandit, yes. I heard what the commissioner said at that time, too.
Listen,
He made
what happened?
his remarks were made public. I could quote him verbatim. Huh?
Got a slap on the wrist and walk out of the country, right?
Yes, he did.
Watch this. You remember, I think a couple of years ago, I think this guy was an ex-Marine who beat up 5 policemen someplace on Bay
Yes.
Street. What happened to him? He
Same
got
thing.
up. They let him go.
Yes, he got a
What
slap
they're
on the
trying to
wrist,
do is,
too.
You know why? Oh, we don't want to offend you. Excuse me. We don't want to offend the United States.
Caller,
But
just
let-
hold on a minute. Caller, just hold the point
No,
there.
I'm just saying. Let me finish. He said, if that was a Bahamian who had beat up a policeman over there in the U.S., they would put the jail on top of him. If that was a Bahamian who did the foolishness, the barefoot bandit, they wouldn't have thrown the key away. They would have melted the key there, nobody could find it. You still there?
Yes, I'm here.
And so what I'm saying, I want to see what's going to happen to this case. We got to stop being afraid of the United States. If you come in this country and you lie on someone trying to put that person character in disarray, you should suffer for it. I don't care who you are, American, whoever you are. But I don't see what's going to happen with this case. The evidence was there, say that didn't happen.
Okay.
Now, I want to see what's going to happen. Thank you.
Okay. Well, he raised a good point, and I could point to some other instances in the past that occurred. We had a situation where there were multiple murders. We haven't yet found out who did those criminal acts. I think it was about 5 or 6 people went down all at one swoop. We do not know up to this day. And the commissioner said that, you know, some things back then, but we don't know. It just went just like that. And the caller talked about the barefoot bandit. Yes, that was a situation that occurred in the Bahamas. You know, if we don't admit when we're wrong, we're going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And you know what we're going to end up doing? Punishing the little boy in Bain Town because he stole a can of corned beef. Huh? The law comes down heavily on his head because he stole a can of corned beef. The fellow hungry. Or the fellow who went into church. Caller, just hang on. The fellow went into church and stole from the church's pantry some bread. I guess he thought he could do that. I'm not saying it's necessarily right now. Don't misunderstand me. But they came down hard on him. Caller, you live on air. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Thompson. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well.
Wonderful, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, I call you because I know that you are a Constitution man for
Okay.
years now.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. And I was wondering, because I know that, if I'm not mistaken, the Constitution is supposed to protect the people against their leaders, you know what I mean? So the people could have rights and to limit their leaders so that their leaders cannot do anything that they see fit. Am I
That is
correct with that, Mr.
You
Thompson?
are 100% correct on that point.
All right, so well, I was wondering, Mr. Thompson, because I had made a point one time, and a gentleman, C. Allen Johnson, had called behind me, and he had said that corporations like entities like PPL and BECR, I think he said something about their incarnations, right? I don't know exactly what that word means.
No,
You know,
I'm not sure what he means by that either.
Yes,
I
sir,
don't
but
know.
what he said was that he said that they cannot be sold without a referendum. And I mean, and see, I was wondering about that, Mr. Thompson, because I don't feel, I mean, you know, the Constitution might allow it, right, Mr. Thompson? But if it did, the Constitution would not be doing its job in protecting the people against their leaders, because I don't see how the Constitution would allow our leaders to just take it upon themselves to sell our essential services.
Okay, now two different things are getting mixed up there. Let me make this plain to the Bahamian people. The Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is always right. It is never, ever wrong. Let me repeat that. No, hold on.
Okay.
Just hold on. You stay on the line. Don't go nowhere. I can let you talk. The Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is always right. It is never, ever wrong. Bahamians, get that into your psyche. That's your salvation document. Don't let anyone fool you on that.
Yes, sir.
Without it, you won't even have the kind of stability that we've had in this country from
Yes, sir.
1729 right on up to now.
Yes, sir. Tell him, Mr. Thompson. And Mr. Thompson, like I said, I mean, I was wondering if they really have the authority to just sell our corporations because they feel so, or are they required to come to us to sell off our essential service, Mr. Thompson? Because I feel as if that is a very, very, very serious thing to do. And I see that they have and I see that they had to come to the public on certain things to get the public okay on certain other things. So I don't understand how in the world they are allowed to sell our essential services, Brother Thompson.
You asked a very good question. I'm going to
yes,
answer
sir.
that question.
So, Brother Thompson, I want you to, if you have never looked into that before, Brother Thompson, I want you to look over the Constitution, Brother Thompson, and I want you to see if our government really and truly has the power to just pick up and sell our corporations off. Because I mean, if that's the case, Brother Thompson, the Constitution ain't doing us no good.
I hear you, Colin.
You know, I mean, I don't know if you agree with that, Brother Thompson, because I mean, to sell our essential services, to sell our monopolies off that the people benefit from, to put in the hands of a private company or private individuals, I don't feel as if that's something the Constitution would encourage, Brother Thompson.
They need 150,000 people like you to think just the way you're thinking right now.
You know, so I need you to, Brother Thompson, I need you to go and, like I said, I use the Constitution, man, Brother Thompson. Now you got to show your weight now, Brother Thompson. You know what I mean? You got to go look into that and come back and tell us if they have the right to do that. Because if they don't, Brother Thompson, we got to demand that BTC be returned, right? And that any talks on BPL be what they call it, cease and desist immediately.
Yes. You know, I heard them talk about the raise for the bus. They supposed to have town meeting on that.
Yeah, the bus fare.
No, but listen, I just trying to draw an analogy there. The bus fare versus PPL.
Yes, sir.
The bus fare versus sending troops into Haiti.
You mean in terms of they have to sit down and talk about with us?
The point is, even with the law they passed, I think with the boat people having
yes, sir. All them things, Brother Thompson, and Brother Thompson, all them things are nowhere as important as our essential services.
I agree with you.
You know what I mean, Brother Thompson? So I need you, Brother Thompson, to let us know if those individuals who we elect to lead us has a right to sell off our things. All right, Brother Thompson? Because if they don't, Brother Thompson, something got to happen to them, and our corporations has to be returned to us immediately.
Well, caller, I appreciate your confidence in me.
Okay, Brother Thompson. Now, Brother Thompson, use the Constitution, man. Now, Brother Thompson, don't let us down now.
Caller, thank you very much for your
confidence. All right, Brother Thompson.
Yeah. I'm going to say to the caller and to people out there, dealing with national issues doesn't rest on a particular personality. Let me make that very clear. While I appreciate his confidence, I know the Constitution. I studied constitutional law, so I can understand where he's coming from. The Constitution sets boundaries for the administration of a government of the Bahamas. If there are no boundaries set, if they violate the boundaries, then there's something you can do about that. I'm going to say to the people right now, since it's in my head, and the caller asked a very good question. I can't knock him for thinking the way he thinks. That's why I told him 150,000. We need to have 150,000 like him thinking the same way. Then we could get somewhere in this country. Because the Bahamian people have to be constitutionally organized on the ground. You're not there yet, Bahamians? I know this. I can look straight through your nostrils and see whether you're constitutionally sound. You can't fool Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson. You might be able to fool some other people. I waited 50 years, Bahamians, for the Bahamian people to wake up to realize they have a constitution. When Her Majesty the Queen died, and our relationship with the new king, that's King Charles over there, he's also King of the Bahamas, but we ain't have it in the Constitution yet, though. We say Her Majesty the Queen. But that's a different story altogether. What I'm saying, Bahamians, is this. It takes the collective will of a people. And when the answer is revealed, because I will let you know whether it is so or not. It's an excellent question. And sometimes what I have to do is go back and review the information to make sure I am constitutionally sound when I make a public statement on the Constitution. Every single statement that I make on the Constitution, I'm not taking it back because I know it is 100% accurate and precise. So I ain't got to come back and apologize to anybody. I would rather, and he asked the question, but I'm going to do some work on it. And caller, please give me some time because some other things some people asked me to look into, and I have to work with a team of people to view these things. It's not just one particular personality. Even when the Patriots came to me, they asked me to look at this document. And I wanted to make sure it was constitutionally sound. Like the Rock of Gibraltar. When it comes to the Constitution of the Colony of the Bahamas, Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson doesn't play. I don't take no sides with anybody. Not even with members of my own family. Because if you're constitutionally wrong, you're not sound constitutionally, that means I got to say it the way it is. I'm taking up for no one. Because that's not going to help this country. For 50 years and 8 months, some funny things been happening in this place. Since independence, of course, now. Although before then, you know, some strange things were happening. But I'm just counting from independence. The day we became an independent nation. That's when I became a Bahamian. July the 10th, 1973. Prior to that, I was a British subject. British subject, United Kingdom and Colonies. I was a citizen of the United Kingdom and Colonies. I was not no citizen, no Africa, or no Botswana. I had nothing to do with the issue. United Kingdom and Colonies. Now I am a genuine Bahamian. So when I see these funny people coming around here talking about they're Bahamian, I could see at a glance they're not Bahamian. Their mannerism, their behavior, everything about them. So caller, that is an excellent question that you asked. And it will be research, specifically about selling off these assets to private entities or foreign entities, as the case may be, where the Bahamian people have to depend on. That's an excellent question. I like those kind of questions, but I'll answer it constitutionally. Bahamians, any answer that is not constitutionally sound is the wrong answer. And unfortunately, we have some people who are doing just that. giving misinformation, misleading the Bahamian people. I don't want to use another word. I have another word in mind, but I say, no, I'll just let that rest for now. But at the appropriate time, I will use it right here live on the radio. Sometimes we are constrained and we have to exercise caution and restraint. We don't want to go on gossip, rumor, and hearsay. That's not the way to be responsible behind the microphones, because there are some people who have the microphones in front of them, like I do, and they're very irresponsible with those live microphones. My mother always tell me, and she was alive, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And every time I sit in front of these live microphones, I remember what Mommy told me. And I don't forget it, just like she's talking to me today. So I remember what I told you, son. And I always remember what my mother told me when I sit in front of live microphones like I'm doing right now. It's a good thing I had Mommy, and I had Daddy too now. I was closer to Mommy than Daddy. I can be a little upfront with you on that one. Although I love both of them. They were very strong disciplinarians. They didn't play. You don't get away with no crap with them. I can tell you that much. We need those kind of parents today. I'm very disappointed that we don't have parents like my mother and father. We have to pass it down from one generation to the next. The Constitution speaks about being a disciplined people, a national commitment to self-discipline. Look at all the lack of discipline we have on our streets, where people are cutting in these little cars, cutting in and swerving all over the place, causing trouble. Where's the discipline? And undisciplined people are headed for disaster. We didn't build the Bahamas being an undisciplined people. Our mothers and fathers didn't behave that way. But now today, we're on the verge of losing, and tomorrow you could wake up and find the Constitution is suspended. That's how dangerously close we are to those particular personalities who want to see something bad happen. But God has his eyes on the Bahamas. Dr. Miles Monroe said, God lives in the Bahamas. Anyone from his church might be able to call and say why he said that. When I came to see how God has been working with us, in spite of our weaknesses, in spite of our problems, in spite of our challenges, God has a special place for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas in history. And you need to know that, Bahamians. You need to be proud that you are a Bahamian citizen and you're not a citizen of them other places. Although you could go there if you want to. But sometimes we get so close to the forest, we can't see the trees anymore. We've been living in it all our lives. We're not accustomed to running this place and running that place like some people in other countries. They run with their belongings with them, and plenty of it they got to leave behind because they can't carry everything. They don't have no truck. They ain't got no car. They got to walk with it, Bahamians, or put it on a little trolley and drag it or something. And while they're doing that, bullets flying all around them. The little children are crying. You've seen the pictures. That's harsh reality, Bahamians. We do not want that in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and I'm calling on you to make sure it doesn't happen. That is why I am saying you need to be constitutionally organized throughout the length and breadth of the Commonwealth. You're not sure how to do that, you call the station, leave your name and number for Professor Sidney McArthur Walter Thompson. I'd be delighted to come and help you with that. I know how important it is. Extremely important. I cannot just sit back and be content while the country goes down the drain, what my ma and pa fought for, my grandparents before them fought for, the work that they did. And people can talk crap about somebody gave us one piece of paper and say, here, we didn't fight to become an independent nation. There was no battle. There was no fight. You see how trivial we get? Some people talking foolishness and nonsense. The sweat from my mother and father, blood, sweat, and tears. And the praying people in the Commonwealth of Bahamas, man, they've been praying from the time of slavery. When the slave masters dropped the chains off them, they went right in the church. The little church on the property, the white man property. They didn't rape his wife. They didn't interfere with his children. That's not the way we are, Bahamians. We don't behave like that. When Queen Victoria made the edict and caused the people of color to be freed from slavery, they went in the church and they prayed to God and thanked God. That is why we don't want a nation without God. We got to stop listening to these strangers and foreigners and aliens and outsiders giving us misinformation and putting us on their list. You hear that kind of foolishness they got? They got one list. And they rate you, use number 10 or number 8, number 7, number 6. What's wrong with us? We cannot dissect what's happening in our own country. That's what you're trying to tell me. Well, nobody put me on no list. You mean to tell me after 50 years and 8 months, we ain't qualified to run anything? Is that what you can tell me? We're going to be in school for another 50 years and 8 months? You got to be kidding. I didn't graduate. Now, I'm not saying that you should not continue to learn. That's a different kettle of fish altogether. But some people want to keep you in school because they say you ain't got no sense, you can't learn, you can't understand, this too big for you, this too complicated for you. They say the Constitution is complicated too. I agree that it is written in a language that the average person can't understand. That's why Professor said explain it to you. So that little child who is 5 years old will be able to say, Grandma, that's what Professor said. And the woman in Bain Town with those 5 boys, she got a little transistor radio right there. She don't know nothing about going on no internet to look for this and look for that. We got to help them kind of people. Now, those who could do that, you all go ahead and do that. Go on the internet and do what you got to do. But she's got to feed them 5 boys she got there. And they looking for the dinner. They're looking for the lunch. And while she's cooking in the kitchen, she got the little transistor radio right there, tuned into Global Radio 99.5. And the boys are listening too, because they want to learn. We have to look out for those kind of people. And I heard the former minister say, who was on another radio show today, about not leaving anyone behind. But when you look at the record of 50 years and 8 months as an independent nation, too many people have been left behind. Too many people who were looking forward to a better way of life did not see it materialize in their lifetime. I heard one famous political personality, after 25 years and 9 months of running this country, that particular personality said to the woman who was 85, who didn't get help in the first 25 years and 9 months, they'll get help in the next 25 years and 9 months. You see the kind of nonsense people are saying? And this particular personality made it big. Got plenty of money. How are we going to tell the woman in Bain Town who is 76 she must wait for another 50 years and 8 months? Is that the kind of language we can tell these people? She needs help today, Bahamians. And that is why I am saying to you, You got to move quickly. We are 50 years and 8 months behind. We've lost that time. That's water under the bridge. And I get very infuriated when I say these things because it's harsh reality. You know how many people have suffered? They were looking for a better day, a better country. They didn't see it. Now, those who are here today, we got to make sure they see it. That means you got to move quickly. I'm going to a break. This is Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network, 99.5 FM. We'll be back after the break.
Express Yourself Live will return right after this.
Original parties.
Speak your mind and express yourself. Call in and participate at 326-0271 or 326-0272. WhatsApp us your concerns on 809-2310. Follow us live on Facebook and Global Radio 99.5FM.com. Express yourself.
We are back. This is Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network, 99.5 FM. Bahamas, it's good to be in the Bahamas, you know. This is a free and sovereign democratic state, a Christian nation too. Now, some people get vexed and say, you only know Christian nation. That's in the Constitution. Check your preamble. The vision and the purpose of your country is expressed in the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Bahamas. You got to go look for no other vision. The vision right there. You just got to carry it out, Bahamians. Let me tell you, while it's in my head, I'm going to be doing constitutional lectures, and I will be asking the people to support those lectures because 99% plus of Bahamians do not know this constitution. I've seen that over 50 years. Now they tell me they didn't know, but that's fine, no problem. That's why Professor is here, to help you to understand the Constitution. And because I study constitutional law, I can look at any law that they pass. I don't care what it is. Real estate law, this law, that law, the next law, international law, regional law. Article 2 of your Constitution says any other law that is inconsistent with this Constitution shall prevail, not somebody else's Constitution. That means we got to get this thing right. The lines are open, 3260271, 3260272, 8010271, and cable number 974. You can watch the program on cable. That means it's time that we have to work extremely hard. My best work is yet to come. I was just preparing all that time. But God caused it to be so. I didn't even know I would have been on the airwaves talking to you about the Constitution. I hadn't planned that at all. I appreciate the gentleman who called and asked that strong question about the Constitution. I love constitutional questions. Y'all need to shoot more at me. But that one, I got to check that one out thoroughly because he wants a constitutional answer. And if I don't remember, I'll be honest with you and tell you, no, I got to check that out to make sure it is constitutionally sound. So when you hear Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson say anything regarding the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Bahamas, he is 100% accurate and precise. And if there's any doubt in his mind, he has to go and check before he says anything publicly. The aim is I will not let you down on that. I tell my team that all the time. Because there are people that have to assist and help. And if they bring something to me and I'm not certain of it, I say, no, wait a minute, we got to go further into that to make sure that's correct. You cannot afford to be misled after 50 years and 8 months. Come on. We already have a deep, 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 deep deficit. That's a real deficit. 99% plus of Bahamians don't know the Constitution. I know that for a fact. Now, here's what I would like to do. I want to turn that around where 99% plus know the Constitution. So you see how this thing goes? You see how much work I have to do and my team would have to do? But it could be done, Bahamians, because with God, all things, he say some, with God, all things are possible. I only can do it by the power of God and the cooperation of the people. But it has to be done, Bahamians, because tremendous damage has already been done. You don't need to hear any more foolishness and nonsense. You got some people who are designed for foolishness and nonsense. So I appreciate the confidence of the gentleman. And others out there who have said some nice things, I appreciate that. I got to live up to it now. See, my whole reputation is on the line when it comes to the Constitution. I speak on it very often, but I have to give you accurate and precise information. You cannot afford to be misled and deceived. Now, do not forget I told you you need to be constitutionally organized on the ground. That has not yet happened. Those of you who have been listening to Global Radio 99.5 and heard me speak on the Constitution, it's what you do with the information you receive, you know. But you have to do it in cooperation with others. This is not a one-man band. Can't do it like that. That's not constitutionally sound. I don't want you to do anything that's contrary to the Constitution. Article 2 forbids you to do that. It says any other law, any treaty, any memorandum of understanding that is contrary to the Constitution. Now, you got some laws. A part of it might be right, a part of it wrong. That's why we got to examine every single law that's in existence from 1729 right on up to this year, 2024. You know how much work that is, Bahamians? To examine every single piece of legislation that has been passed in that house and went on to the Senate, the Governor General signed it. If it's like the Bahamas National Act, we're in plenty of trouble. I could tell you that right off the top. Baby, you got to wake up. If those laws are like the Bahamas Nationality Act of 1973, we are in serious trouble. I can repeat it again because you don't hear that. If those laws passed in that house are like the Bahamas Nationality Act of 1973, we are in very serious trouble. That's just a warning shot, Bahamians. And I said 99% plus of our people don't know the Constitution. That's a deficit. You talking about deficit in the Bahamas? That's a huge deficit. But we got to change it, Bahamians, where it becomes 99% plus who know the Constitution. Then we'll have a stronger country. So don't roll over and say nothing you could do. There's plenty you could do. Now let me speak to this fear, because it's in my head now. I can speak to that right now. You need not be afraid. Why are you fearful? I want you out there who are listening to Professor Sidney Mercado Walton call in and say why you think the people are fearful. When I read the Constitution, it doesn't fear. It says freedom of expression. You got that right here on this. Now, I know about them other people now. I know nothing about them. I know you could do it here. I can't speak for those other people. On this radio station, you can. Now, of course, there are certain words you cannot use. I can't repeat them. But I think you just use your imagination. Because the law doesn't allow it to be done. We got regulations we have to go by. America has rules and regulations. They're not contrary to the Constitution, so we just comply. See, I can comply with anything that's not contrary to the Constitution. So I ain't got no problem with that. You have a right to do that, and you just move on. Some things are better left unsaid rather than said. We should only try to do those things that are beneficial for the majority or overwhelming majority of the Bahamian people. That's in the best interest of the Bahamian people. Those are the things we ought to be concentrating on. Now, I know that there are problems and people have issues with problems. No problem with that. Now, what are you prepared to do about those issues that affect the Bahamian people? So you got to keep listening now. And there'll be some other things that I'll be involved in. I told you about the constitutional classes. That's coming up very soon. And it has to be done, Bahamians, because it is sorely needed in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And as I said, the Constitution is your salvation document to save the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I'm so glad we have it. I'm so glad of the great work done by Mommy and Daddy. Where would we be if we didn't have it? Where would we be? Like them other fellas out there? Is that what you want? You want a broke up, tear up, rip up country? We got to run with your bed on your head, if you could carry it, and the little children crying, and people get injured, like in the Gaza Strip. People can't even get proper medication because they've been injured and they can't get medical attention. You don't want to see that happen. And we have some problems with Princess Margaret Hospital. Princess Margaret Hospital is a kingdom compared to what them other fellas get. But you got plenty of other people sitting up in Princess Margaret Hospital who are taking up space. which should be reserved for Bahamians. But they say they can't turn nobody away because they need health issues. But some of our people getting left right out in the cold. They need to be attended to by the medical authorities in this country. Bahamian citizens are first and foremost. They shouldn't have to be waiting on anybody. What are they waiting for? Now, let's speak about this issue of fear. Why are you afraid? Who made you afraid? What makes you afraid? When the Bible says, fear not, for I am with you always, even to the end of the world. Do you believe that, Bahamians? God is with the Bahamas? And if he have to step in and break up the enemy and mash them up, he'll do it himself. He knows just how to do it. We've had it done before. Some people don't listen, you know. They don't learn. So God got to come and mash them up again. But we have our responsibility as citizens of the Commonwealth of Bahamas to do that which is right, that which is proper, that which is good. We have to listen to God. We have to obey God. If we want him to be a part of our national affairs, then we got to listen to God. Are our elected and appointed personalities doing that? All you do is look at the results. What do the results show? We have a problem with murder in this country. Now, God's word says very clearly that if a person takes a man's life, his life should be taken. I don't know of any lives being taken from the time more than 20 years ago. But look at the long list of slaughters. This is serious, you know. Look at the long list of slaughtered persons who are in their graves today. And the recent ones, the most recent ones, probably in the morgue. And we've not had any severe punishment for murder. And God's word tells you, because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, it is therefore set in the hearts of the sons of men to do evil. And yet people say these fellows don't fear the law. The police have their work cut out for them. And I heard the commissioner make some remarks today about bringing the community together through urban renewal. That's all right. Nothing wrong with that. I know when Mr. Stephen Dean was first in charge of urban renewal, everything the police did. And being a senior justice of the peace in the Fort Castle area, the only one there now, only one senior justice of the peace, that's me. He would come and tell me exactly what the police were doing when they would make their moves in that community. We don't get that now. But they say they're going to start it all over again. I don't know what has happened to them. The fellows who succeeded Stephen Dean. Excellent policeman. He became senior assistant commissioner of police. I have the highest respect for Stephen Dean. A very good police officer. I think he might have retired by now. But nothing happened in Fort Castle unless I knew about it when the police would have come in there. He would make sure that I was informed. That's the kind of respect he had for the justice of the peace. But these other fellas, you know, they ain't checking. And the law says when you call on them, they are to obey you. That's in the Magistrates Act. They must be forgetting. I can bring the Magistrate Act and read that right here on here. Because it ain't changed. That's statute law. To quell disturbances. The Justice of Peace has that authority. Riots and people acting contrary in the community. He has the authority by law to stop it. And he has called the police. The police is supposed to come and assist him, and they are to obey him. That's in law. They mustn't forget. I think sometimes they got to be reminded, you know. But since I got these live microphones, I can remind them. The point is, we have to be our brother's keeper. We have to help our brothers and sisters who may not know, who may not understand. No person should be left behind, not a living one. No matter where they live in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, not a living soul. Now, them fellas who are here illegally, you got to go home. We ain't playing with that. You don't belong here. So all we need to do is arrest you, put you in ward, and then have you repatriated. I'm delighted that they sending those illegal aliens back right away. Amnesty International on top of keeping them here. I didn't know we're supposed to listen to Amnesty International. We listen to these people talk foolishness, you know. And they don't pay nothing. They don't give you no funding. They got plenty out. You got an invasion of millions crossing the southern border now. That's what it's reported in the press. I only could go by the reports that I get. Under the current administration of the United States. And remember now, they choose 2 old men to run their country. They ain't going for no person in their 30s and their 40s. So what has happened to America? They must be going backward. They want no young people to run their presidency. They got 2 senior men. And some people say they can't get out each other way. But that's what they chose. I understand the 2 of them are now confirmed for their respective parties. So what are they thinking? Where's the young blood? Yet in the Bahamas, we are saying we want to push these senior people aside and say they want to put the place up with young people. Any nonsense like that. Young people have a role to play, you know. But are you supposed to put, well, you're saying you're pushing God aside too? God says, Christ said, I work and my Father work. Senior people in this country can work and make their contribution. You're not supposed to push them aside or put them into forced retirement. If they want to retire, well, and that's a different thing. Isaac had to wait, how many years now? 75 years. Before he took over from his father Abraham. 75 years. How many young people are prepared to wait for 75 years before they take over the country? Are you ready for that? They may say, oh no, Professor, that's too long. But are you prepared? Are you ready for leadership? You say them old people, they had their time. They need to just move off the scene. Are you saying God must move off the scene too? Are you saying Jesus Christ must move off the scene? Because he said, I work and my Father work. I got to follow their example. And I'm one of the young people. Don't you ever forget that. These are not as young as I am. They don't have the level of education. They don't have the level of experience and wisdom and knowledge and understanding. You need those kind of people to build your country, and you need the young people to make their contribution as well. So you don't have to pit against the senior people against the young people and the young people against the senior people. What kind of nonsense is that? That's not godly. That's not the way I grew up. I always respected those who were my elders. I was taught that way. And you can't say nothing against them, you know. You can't argue with them. You got to keep quiet. I could never tell my mother and father that any senior member of the family did this or did that. That was never allowed. You were not allowed to do that. That was never tolerated. Now today I see children, they curse at mommy and daddy and speak disrespectfully to senior people in the community. What kind of nonsense is this? Well, the man did say he's going to do something with urban renewal. And that's fine. That's quite good. But you got to get mommy and daddy involved too. Because the responsibility of these children rests with mommy and daddy. And I am talking about single parent home. Well, you have some of that too. But they still have a responsibility to their children. The state could help now. And I think a lot of them need help, the parents. But not to take it over completely to the point where the parents go frolicking all over the place. That's not a good thing at all. They have to be responsible for the training and the development of their children. And you who are in the community, you could help also as well. But we have too many silos in the communities. We don't have that community spirit like we used to have many years ago. We got to build it back. That's all. The games that I played when I was a child, I don't see young people playing those games today. But we got to reactivate it then. That's the word I should use. You got to reactivate that and get them out of the house from these computers and these phones and texting and all that kind of thing. They don't even speak to one another. They sit right at the table texting one another. You any foolishness like that? But they're doing it. They're so glued to these gadgets. They don't verbally communicate. Now, see, a fellow like me, I got to verbally communicate. God does it, so why can't you do it? Payments, we got to wake up. I believe I had the music in the background, so I got about maybe 2 or 3 minutes to do it right on time. But Bahamians, listen, I am delighted that you listened to the show today. Please continue to listen, but I want you to act on the information. Now, do not forget to call me. I still would like for people to send me the email, sydneymthompson@hotmail.com. Let me put your name, your full name, your address, your street number, your constituency you're in, your phone numbers. I will call every single one of them who sent me an email. I'm working on that list. So don't forget, please send it in. It's very important. And you need to be organized on the ground in your community where you live. If you ain't sure how to do that, you call me. The numbers are 465-5786, 465-5786, 325-8652, 325-8652. And of course, the radio station here, you could call and say, this is a message for Professor Thompson. Just leave your name and your number. Don't say, I know the number, because I got plenty of numbers to call. Just leave your name and number. This has been Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson on the Global Radio Network, 99.5 FM. I'll be back tomorrow. I expect to have a guest tomorrow and possibly Thursday. I'm working on it. Thank you very much for listening, and have a very pleasant afternoon.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions